Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in.
Okay, happy Tuesday everybody. First up, China has imposed restrictions on exports of two metals that are critical to parts of the semiconductor, telecommunications and electric vehicle industries in the latest escalation in the ongoing technology war with the US and its allies. Yesterday, Monday, the Ministry of Commerce announced that starting the 1st of August, licenses will be required for exports of gallium and germanium, as well as related compounds. It's unclear whether licenses will be refused. We will need to wait until August to see whether this is just a threat or not. The metals aren't particularly rare or difficult to find, but being relatively high cost to extract, Chinese supplies, which have been well subsidized, are quite competitive. China now accounts for about 94% of the world's gallium production, according to the UK Materials Intelligence Centre. If China does end up tightly restricting the metals, it would be quite disruptive in the short term. While morally, Beijing policymakers may feel perfectly justified in placing export restrictions on these metals, after all, the US, Japan, the Netherlands and others have been slowly choking off Chinese access to semiconductor technology. Quote, as the US and its allies continue to escalate their chip war and technological crackdown, it is normal and indeed crucial for China to take proactive measures to safeguard its technological development and national security and interests. End quote. However, from a strategic perspective, this move will likely further empower trade hawks in Western and East Asian capitals, arguing that their dependence on Chinese supply chains is dangerous and calling for more technology decoupling. Quote, when they stop suppressing the price, it suddenly becomes more viable to extract these metals in the West. Then China again has an own goal. For a short while, they get a higher price, but then China's market dominance gets lost. The same thing has happened before in other things, like rare earths. End quote. Next up, China has urged low and mid-income countries to oppose a levy on shipping emissions, one of the world's most polluting industries, a move which France has been promoting and has gained support from developed economies. UK-based financial media outlet The Financial Times writes, citing 4 unnamed sources, that Beijing distributed a diplomatic note to developing nations as they prepared for a critical meeting at the UN's International Maritime Organization in July. China reportedly expressed in the note, quote, an overly ambitious emission reduction target will seriously impede the sustainable development of international shipping, significantly increase the cost of the supply chain, and will adversely impede the recovery of the global economy. Developed countries are pushing the IMO to reach unrealistic visions and levels of ambition. They are advocating a flat levy that will lead to a significant increase in maritime transport costs. End quote. Of course, China has very strong economic incentives to impose the move as well. The PRC is the world's biggest exporter, which also has a large state-owned shipping industry. Quote, it's probably no surprise that countries that rely heavily on export surpluses to counter weak domestic demand are opposed to green taxes on shipping. End quote. Next up, according to the chairman of the Thai-Chinese Chamber of Commerce, speaking at the recent 16th World Chinese Entrepreneurs Conference in Bangkok, Thailand, more major Chinese EV makers are looking to Thailand as a manufacturing and distribution base for the wider Southeast Asian market, the fastest growing EV market in the world. We have explored in previous videos China's growing dominance in global electric vehicle production and sales, backed up by strong state support and the massive home market. We have also seen how big players like BYD and Great Wall Motor have been eyeing Thailand, as well as neighbouring Vietnam, as a base for their Southeast Asian operations. We have now learned that China's Hozon, HOZON, New Energy Automobile Co. will start production in Thailand to sell to Southeast Asia in 2024. Chongqing Tangang Automobile and GAC have also announced plans to invest in the country. According to Thailand's Board of Investment, in Q1 this year, investment from Chinese firms surged 87% year-on-year, and while China was in lockdown last year, the base effect of this increase was not too significant. Investment flowed, according to the investment board, primarily into battery production, electronics, petrochemicals, and solar cells. Meanwhile, Chinese EV firms also have their eyes on Europe, a slower growing but lucrative EV market. And US-based Politico points out that they may have more luck there than in the US. Quote, the US imposes a stiff 27.5% tariff for Chinese-made cars, put in place during Donald Trump's presidency, and has buttressed that with the protectionist tax credits of President Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, which put a premium on car and battery production in North America. Meanwhile, Europe's moves have, intentionally or not, provided a strategic opening for China's start-up car brands. The bloc's tariffs on imported cars are only 10%, and European national subsidies for electric vehicles apply to imports as well as domestically made cars and trucks. End quote. Next up, Japan, South Korea, and China. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's episode of China Update, don't forget to hit that like button. Liking and sharing is a huge help, especially as increasingly it does appear that YouTube does not want to share these episodes with new viewers, so sharing with people who you think would be interested in China Update is a tremendous help. And as always, anyone who can go the extra mile and help keep the channel financially sustainable, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Finally, for today's episode, also on Monday, China's top diplomat, Wang Yi, his official title being the Director of the Office of the Foreign Affairs Commission of the Communist Party of China Central Committee, putting him above the Foreign Minister Qin Gang, gave a special speech at the opening ceremony of the International Forum for Trilateral Cooperation 2023 in Qingdao, Eastern China. In his speech, Wang called on China, Japan, and the Republic of Korea to relaunch their cooperation efforts and criticized the latter two for undermining these efforts, expressing, quote, China, Japan, and South Korea, as well as other Asian countries, should practice open regionalism, promote inclusive Asian values, cultivate strategic autonomy, safeguard regional unity and stability, resist the Cold War mentality, and avoid coercion by hegemony. End quote. In case his veiled point wasn't clear enough, Wang added, quote, in recent years, some major powers outside the region have deliberately played up ideological differences and created various exclusive cliques in an attempt to replace cooperation and unity with confrontation and division in order to realize their own geopolitical interests. End quote. This is obviously a thinly veiled swipe at the United States. Wang also made a 5-point proposal, including strengthening mutual trust, mutual benefit, connectivity, mutual assistance, as well as exchanges and mutual learning. A major theme of the speech is clear. We need to act as a region, rejecting extra-regional interference, and as the largest state, we, China, should act as the first among equals. Japanese and South Korean statements indicate that they are not particularly attracted to this proposal. Quote, as usual, there is no introspection about what the PRC may have done to have caused shifts in views, just veiled blaming of the US, as if these two countries have no agency, and the likely officially sanctioned calls for boycotts of Japanese goods over the impending release of radioactive water from Fukushima will only make the PRC-Japan relationship more fraught. Perhaps Xi Jinping thought on diplomacy will also dictate more punishment for South Korea over the THAAD deployment, then endearing the PRC even less to South Korea officials and the public. End quote. According to the most recent Japan-China joint public opinion poll conducted by Japanese-based think tank Genron, NPO, the percentage of Japanese respondents with a poor impression of China currently stands at 90.9%. 66.1% of Chinese respondents feel the same way towards Japan. According to US-based Pew's latest public sentiment survey from 2022, 87% of Japanese respondents held an unfavorable view of China. That rate was 80% for South Koreans. China, Japan, and South Korea are the world's second, third, and 12th largest economies respectively, and all sit in the economically dynamic and critical, as well as geopolitically fault-line-ridden region of East Asia. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a lovely Tuesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.